Are you recording?
Yes, we are
Okay.
ready now. Yes.
Okay. So great again, Dr. Pai. Thank you for coming to on your own channel. and we thought we will talk about something about divisional charts, correct?
Yes.
Like I would like to explain that we have the D1 chart, but for any astrological prediction, we not only analyze the position of planets and constellations and nakshatras and what and what not just only on D1 chart. Of course, D1 chart is very important, but we also look for other divisional charts such as D9 chart, D10 chart, D7 chart as per the case. For example, if you want to see for marriage, you will analyze the D1 chart of a native, but at the same time, you will also look for the position of planets and you will analyze the chart in the D9 too. If you ask me for job opportunities, what I do generally, that's what how I do. I look first into D1 and I also equally pay attention to D10 chart. So depending upon job, you will look D1, D10. If it's a marriage query, you look D1 and D9, so on and so forth. So there are different divisional charts which people or astrologer have to analyze as the cases arise. Now I would like to know why we have to do this divisional chart analysis. What is it? Why we are not able to just analyze each and everything just using the D1 chart? Why do we need divisional charts, and what is the significance of this divisional chart in astrology? What is the importance of that? So can you please shed some light on these queries?
Yeah. Aditya, Dr. Togi, thank you for being part of this discussion, because we have already had a discussion a couple of days ago on this. And I said, let me share some of the basics of the Varga charts, we call them, the divisional charts. They're also called as the harmonic chart. So what I want to do is I just want to discuss about the 16 most important charts by Parashar Rishi. We will not discuss everything. We will make only a high level analysis of some of the most important charts that most of the astrologers usually used in Jyotisha. So this is an advantage, that when you use Jyotisha or Vedic astrology, then you look at these harmonic charts as well in making an interpretation. And this is an additional tool in your kit to make precise analysis of a particular event in a chart. For example, what you already mentioned, when you're looking at the marriage, and we also look at the D9 chart. I'm not saying that is the only chart we have to look at. With D1 chart, we also look at the D9 chart. Now, in today's discussion, what I want to shed some light on is what are the different divisional charts, and what is the ruling planet, and how can you apply this ruling planet. Now, this concept of the supporting karaka or the supporting graha of each of the divisional charts has always been very oblique. Nobody even discusses, but everybody knows, okay, when you're talking about D9 chart, then Venus becomes very important. Okay, so I'm just going to discuss the basis of how we have come to this, and that's, I will share my screen and I will then take you through. If there is any questions, you can feel free to ask me. But again, this is a very preliminary, first level. So I'm titling this as the ruling grahas of the vargas or amshas. Okay. Now, when we go to the divisional charts by Rishi Parashar, he calls them the Shodasha Vargas. Shodasha means the 16 divisional charts, or these are the 16 harmonic charts. Now, there is a particular order in which, Parashar Rishi has listed the 16 divisional charts. Okay. There are some additional charts as well, which, they do not fall in the category of 16 divisional charts. For example, there is also Panchamamsha, which is the D5 chart, which is not part of the 16 divisional charts. Our only focus today would be on these very important Shodasha Vargas, which is the 16 divisional charts. Now, look at each of the sequence in which Parashar Rishi has given these charts, because the sequencing will be very, very important in analyzing what is the Karaka Graha or the ruling Graha of each of the divisional charts. So out of these 16, the first divisional chart is the Rashi chart. The divisor is 1. So here we call it the D1 chart. Now we all know that the D1 chart is largely associated with the body, the physical matters, and all the general matters that you want to see, because that's the area of influence of the D1 chart. So D1 chart is one of the most important, because everybody gives importance when you start looking at the chart. First you look at the D1 chart before you go into any divisional charts. Okay. The second chart in the sequence of the ordering of Parashar Rishi is the Hora chart. Hora means the divisor is 2. So what you do essentially, the D2 chart, you're dividing each Rashi into 2 parts. So before one Rashi was 30 degrees. Now you are dividing in the Hora chart, dividing into 2 parts of 15 degrees each. Okay. Now this chart, Hora chart, is very essentially associated with family and wealth. If you have to see wealth in the divisional charts, then you definitely cannot ignore the Hora chart, which is the second divisional chart. The third divisional chart is called as Drakena or Drashtakon in Sanskrit. It is the third divisor, which means you divide 30 degrees of a Rashi into 3 parts, 10 degrees each. Okay, and this third chart, which is called as Drakena, is associated with siblings and the nature of the siblings. Generally, you see nature and siblings are seen from the third divisional chart as well. There are many more applications of these divisional charts. I'm talking about the primary influences of each of these divisional charts. Then the fourth is called as Chaturthamsha. Chaturthamsha means the fourth divisor. So you divide 30 degrees by 4 parts, and that is usually to see property, fortune, and education. The basic education is always seen from the 4th house. So the fourth divisible chart is associated with fortunes and property. Then you have the seventh, Saptamamsha, which is the fifth, part of this 16 divisional chart. The fifth is Saptamamsha, which means the 7th division, and that is associated with children or progeny. Then we have the 6th, out of the 16 division chart is Navamsha. It is 9th division or divisible by 9. So 30 degrees divided by 9, which gives you 3 degrees, 20 minutes each. So that is called as a Navamsha or Navmamsh, we also say Navmamsh. So it is D9. So that is usually associated with your dharma, your relationships, the fruits of your tree, your wife, and all of those things can be seen from there. Then the 7th chart in the division chart is Dashmamsh or Dashamsh or Dashmamsh also it said is the 10th divisible. So dividing 30 degrees of a Rashi by 10 parts, so it gives you 3 degrees per part. So it is the 10th divisible. It is showing what is your actions in the society. It also shows your Kriyamani karmas or your profession, your career in general. So the 10th divisional chart is usually studied to see what are your action and reactions to the society's stimulus. So between a stimulus that you receive and from the response you give, that is basically based on the Dashmamsh also, besides the D1 chart. Then we have, the other higher division charts, which is Dwadashamsha, which is D12. Then Shodasamsha, which is, D16. So I have given you all the other things going up to Shashtyamsha. Shashtyamsha is the divisor by 60. So the D60 chart is for all general indications, including past birth or karmas of the natives. So the area of influence primarily I've given you there. And this is the order of Parashar Rishi. So do not forget this order, because this order has a very key to it. And the key, the master key to this is what I'm going to share in the next slide. Now, this sequencing that I've seen has a very strong association with the days of the week. Not directly, but I'm saying indirectly. Because why is that? Is because when you look at the Karaka Grahas associated with each of the Rashis, so which is the primary Graha or planet which is associated with the body, the physical matters, and all general matters? It is the sun. The sun will show you your personality. The sun will show you your characteristics. The sun will show you your physical appearance. So the day of the week, which is associated with sun, is Sunday. So even though this doesn't have a direct link with the days of the week, I have just, for the ease of remembering, I've given you in the format of the days of the week. So it becomes very easy for you to remember. So the D1 chart, which is a Rashi chart, has been strongly influenced by the sun. Then the second chart, which is the Hora chart, it's the D2 chart, is influenced by the moon because the second day of the week is Monday. So anything to do with family, second house matters, wealth, everything has to be seen from the D2 chart and also from the moon. Then the third chart, as per the sequence which has been, the ordering which has been given by Parashar, is Drashtakon or Drakena chart, the D3 chart. And here you see the day of the week that I'm associating with is Tuesday, because the Karaka Graha is Mars. So Mars is usually seen for co-born or your siblings, younger siblings we say in general. Then we see the fourth one is associated with vehicles, property, fortune, and basic education. So it is associated with Mercury, and Mercury is associated with Wednesday. So that's why I'm giving you this easy to remember days of the week. Even though I'm repeating again, it doesn't have a direct significance with the divisional charts. So Mercury will be very key to be observing as the supporting graha or the Karaka graha or the significant graha for the Chaturshamsha. So if you want to see education and the quality of education or the basic education, then you definitely have to see the fourth divisional chart and how Mercury will behave in that chart. I'll give you a few more tips as well as we go to the next slide. So then the fifth divisional chart is Saptamamsha. The fifth day of the week is Thursday. Jupiter is the Karaka Graha or the supporting Graha for Saptamamsha. Saptamamsha means associated with children, progeny, and offsprings. Then we go to the sixth chart, which is Navamsh. Navamsh or the ninth division, the ninth harmonic, it is associated with fruits of the tree, relationship, dharma, wife. And the Karaka Graha for Navamsh is Venus. That because the sixth day of the week is Friday, and that's why you can see the influence of Venus being very strong on an Navamsh. So anything that you need to see with the marital life and you want to see about your spouse, you can also see from the Navamsh. That doesn't mean that Navamsh is only for marriage, but you can see many more things with the Navamsh. But here I'm saying primarily we would use that when you want to talk about marital life or marriage in general. Then Dashmamsh. It is the seventh divisional chart of the 16 divisional charts. So if you really see here, the seventh day of the week is Saturday. So Saturn will be associated with Dashmamsh or Dashamsh. So anything to do with your actions, anything to do with your profession, occupation, your Kriyamani karmas of life. Kriyamani means what are the actions you need to perform based on certain karmas that have to manifest in your life. So naturally the 10th house of the chart, of the D1 chart, and the 10th lord will be very significant along with Saturn. So Saturn cannot be neglected when you are studying a Dashmamsh. And then finally, I'm just talking about Dwadashamsha. Dwadashamsha means it is associated with your paternal and your maternal legacies or your lineage, your parents in general. Okay, so the day of the week is every day. Whenever it is dawn, usually you see Ketu is very powerful, and when it is dusk, Rahu is very powerful. And the Karaka Grahas that you need to study for Dwadashamsha is the sun and the moon, because the sun is the father. You know, the cosmic father is the sun, and we say moon is the cosmic mother. They are the cosmic parents. So we have to study the sun and the moon in the Vadashamsha to really understand your lineage, where you come from, what are your higher goals, and what are the karmas that you also need to pay for your ancestors, your grandparents. All of that can be seen from the D12 chart. And Rahu and Ketu become very primary when you study the D12 chart, because Rahu and Ketu also are called are associated with your grandparents. So Rahu is associated with your paternal grandfather, Ketu with your maternal grandfather. Similarly, Rahu is associated with your maternal grandmother, and Ketu is also associated with your paternal grandmother. So Rahu and Ketu become very important when you study the system. And finally, I'll give you some tips for application in a chart, and I've given it to you here. I'll take one or two examples to teach you how to look at a divisional chart. This is just an initial way of trying to interpret a chart. There are many more techniques that you can use, but becomes primary. So, for example, let us take the Saptamsha chart. The Saptamsha is a D7 chart. It is a fifth divisional chart, or the Amsha chart given by Parashar Rishi, associated with Jupiter, is the Karaka Graha. So in a D7, what you have to do is you have to look at the position of Jupiter and mark that position in the D7 chart. Now, then what you have to do is go to the D1 chart, look at the 7th house, okay, and the 7th lord, mark that in the D1 chart, and similarly the same house also has to be marked in the D7 chart. Now let us say if your 5th house becomes Aries, considering that your ascendant was in Sagittarius, Aries becomes your 5th house. So if you're marking that as Aries as the 5th house, even in the D7 chart, mark that Aries. So that becomes a very important point of study. Besides that, look at the 5th house lord in the D1 chart. The 5th house lord in your D1 chart is, if Sagittarius is the ascendant, then the 5th house lord will be Mars. So look at how Mars is posited in your D7 chart, and look at how Jupiter is posited in the D7 chart, and look at the relationship. When I'm saying this, it can take a lot of more techniques of Parashara to study a normal relationship based on conjunction, maybe aspects. Study this chart as you would study a normal D1 chart. Look at the D7 chart with these points and study them from different perspective, and definitely you will get some more hint when you're studying the divisional charts in this manner. So one way of looking at the divisional charts is always the D1 chart becomes important. With respect to the D1 chart, you have to see how the displacement has happened of the planet in the D7 chart when you're looking at a Saptamamsha, when you're talking about children and progeny. And you also will definitely look at Jupiter's position in the D7 chart, because the Karaka planet for D7 is Jupiter. So this is in summary, I wanted to tell you, how to study each of these charts and how to mark and, try to make an interpretation from this. This is only a very preliminary application of the divisional charts, that once you start studying this, I think you will be able to apply all the other, principles which are generally learned in Parashari astrology, and that will give you a greater understanding and a greater insight when you are wanting to study from the perspective of the divisional charts. So this gives you an additional tool for you to make a deeper and precise, understanding of the divisional charts. So Aditya, what do you
Great,
what
great. It's very significant. I think keep the slides, Dr. Pai. I will
Okay, sure. Which
point.
slide do you want to?
Yeah, where you have all the karakas of planets.
Here? Here?
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
So it's interesting to see the Karaka graph for D1 is Sun, and we know Sun Lagna, correct? Lagna is one of the important thing in the D1, and that Lagna all depends upon the Sun's position and where the Lagna is, the Sun will change. So there's a lot of time factor, very important time factor hidden in the D1 chart. Okay, so Sun is definitely makes sense why it is the Graha for the D1 chart, because it's a matter of what time you are born and who controls the time. It's the planet Sun who controls the time. Similarly, Moon is related to wealth, family, and it is also the second. When I say D2, then it's like second house. And they say, some astrologers have said that if you have a good relation with your mother, or if you have a no problems with your mother, keeping your mother happy, you will never face any problem with wealth. That's a remedy in itself. Why? Because Moon is connected to wealth. Moon is also the mother. So again, Moon becomes the Karaka Graha for D2, which is for wealth and family. So that makes sense. As Mars, we know its siblings. But for Mercury, it was surprising for me to see fortune, property, vehicle. With, of course, basic education, basic learning can be associated with Mercury. But this is one extra new point which I saw is that fortune, property, vehicles like D4 is connected with Mercury somehow. So that's something new I learned. And the other thing is, if you go to the next chart, next slide, can you throw some light on understanding the D12? Because what happens in D12 becomes more complex because you have Sun, you have Moon, you have Rahu and Ketu too. If you want to really see D12 chart, uh, can you explain a bit? Because others till D1 to D10, there's only one planet Karaka, and then see the relation. Things are a bit easier. But as you go to D12 and higher, as for example in D12 itself, there's Rahu, there is Ketu, there is Sun and Moon. So there are like 4 planets have come into the picture. Can you tell us something about how to analyze the D12 chart? Because it's a bit complex compared to the other divisional charts.
I completely agree with you. And that's why I have not put any, there is only half of the 16 divisional charts is what I have shown you here, is very particularly because as you go to the higher divisional charts, there might be multiple planets which would be controlling the divisional charts. And then the study of those divisional charts becomes a little more difficult. Okay. Now that's why till Dwadashamsha we can introduce it, because Dwadashamsha is a very important chart which many astrologers have forgotten. Along with D9, D12 also is a very key chart. And as per our discussions that we have been having recently with the Kapil Raj from KRS channel, he vouches with the Shamsha. He says from his research he's just been looking at the Shamsha, and the Shamsha itself can give you so much of insights about a person, because the Shamsha really relates to the actions of a person in the society and what is the stimulus he gets from the society and what response he has to give to the stimulus that he's receiving. So now let's go to the Dwadashamsha. Now Dwadashamsha is one of the most neglected charts because many people do not know the functioning of the Dwadashamsha. Now, when you say Dwadashamsha, Dwadashamsha was also called as Suryamsha, because you see there are 12 Adityas, there are 12 months in a year, and Dwadasha Adityas. So they are like controlling the complete essence of the chart. Because as we said, the sun controls the D1 chart, but the D1 chart, the finest essence of the D1 chart, because you mentioned that the sun can be explained to be controlling the D1 chart. Also, if you see naturally in the zodiac, Aries is considered to be the first Rashi or the zodiac sign. That's where sun gets exalted. Then the second sign that you see, which is Taurus, that's where you see the moon gets exalted. So these two planets have a very key positioning of Aries and Taurus. So if you really know that it's Mars and Venus, so Sun gets exalted in Mars, which is a masculine planet, and Moon gets exalted in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, which is a feminine planet. So the father concept, the mother concept is coming very strongly from there. Now, when you come to the Suryamsha, which is the Dwadashamsha, the 12th division, again we are dividing each of the Rashi into 12 parts. So if you really think about it, we have 12 zodiac signs, and we again with this 12 concept, we're dividing it by 12, becomes very, very fine granularity what you're trying to see of that Amsha. So why you have to look at Rahu and Ketu? Now, Rahu and Ketu, as we said, these are the karmic nodes. Rahu is said to be the karmic, outlet, and Ketu is like the karmic inlet. So Rahu and Ketu have a very strong connection with your generation because they are very strongly linked to your ancestors, as I mentioned. Now, when you go and study the Dwadashamsha, I would really look at the D1 chart positioning of Rahu and Ketu, and I will make that axis very, very important. The second component, when I go to the Dwadashamsha, I would really look at what planets are with the nodes, or planets which are aspecting the nodes. If there are no planets aspecting the nodes, or if there is no planets in conjunction with the nodes, then definitely I will also look at the dispositor of the Rahu and Ketu. Now, just for those people who are new to this concept, so let us assume that Rahu is in Aries and Ketu is in Libra, and there is no planets with Rahu and Ketu, and there are no planets which are aspecting Rahu and Ketu in the chart. So then definitely Mars and Venus will become the dispositors. So Mars and Venus and their relationship with Sun and Moon in the D12 is what I would really see. Now, when I'm saying what is a relationship, first of all, I would like to see what is the distance between the Sun and the dispositor or a planet which is associated with Rahu and Ketu. I will see also from the D1 chart where these things have gone with respect to the Sun and Moon in the D12. So these are very key indicators for me as an initial probe to really understand what is the generational influence, or what are the karmic lineage influence that the person is bringing into this life. Because D1 is still very, very high level, because when you look at a D1 chart, you can almost say that there are so many people who are born during the same time, maybe the same place during the same. But as you go to the higher divisional charts, because you're going more to the precision, you can really make that judgment much more precisely. So I would say, although this is still an unexplored and a lot of research needs to be done, but I would definitely say the Karaka Grahas, what I'm calling, or the supporting planets to these Varga charts, you definitely have to observe their relationship and how they are panning out with something to do with the nodes. That is why I said, these nodes will be very active during Sandhya Kal. Now, if you go to even understand the ayanas, so in astronomy and astrology, we have, the motion of the sun is called as the ayana. Ayana means is the path of the sun. So the ecliptic. So based on the path of the sun, we have Uttarayana and Dakshinayana. So in Vedic texts like Faladipika and Saravali, it is very clearly mentioned that certain planets are stronger during certain ayanas. Like the planets which are very strong during the Dakshinayana, and if you do remedies for these planets during Dakshinayana, they give you greater results. What are those planets? Mars, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu are very, very strong during the Dakshinayana. And that is why you see, Aditya, some of the rituals that we do in the Dakshinayana will give you an indication. In the month of Bhadrapada, we celebrate Ganesha Chaturthi in the Dakshinayana. That is for Ketu. If you say Ganesha is a symbolic representation of Ketu, then we are doing, Ganesh Chaturthi then. Next, the Sharad Navratra, which is one of the most important Navratras among the 4 Navratras we do, that also comes in Dakshinayana. So we are talking about Durga. Durga is said to be Rahu's energy, correct? So only Rahu's energy can be controlled by Durga. Similarly, Ketu's energy can be counteracted by Ganesha. So most of these celebrations we are doing also are doing with some element that we can see. Even Diwali. So Uttarayana is when the Devas are very stronger because it's daytime for them. And and Dakshinayana is when it is nighttime for the Devas and the Asuras become very strong. The Asuric forces are stronger, and that is why we try to have Diwali, Ganesh Chaturthi, and many of these festivals which come, after the sun's journey into Cancer. That is typically when you say the Dakshinayana begins, isn't it?
Yep.
So why do you see this? That's again because we want to show the connection with Rahu and Ketu. So Pitru Paksha, which is the 15 days that we do for our ancestors, again we are doing it in Dakshinayan. Why are we not doing it in Uttarayan? So if you see the festivals, Krishnashtami comes in Dakshinayan, Ram Navami comes in Uttarayan.
Right. Yeah.
So we can see some
But I
correlation.
think Janmashtami, the Krishnashtami, the Janmashtami, how we will put, because that also comes in Dakshinayana.
Yeah.
And it is for the moon, correct? Because
Exactly.
Lord,
But you know what? We are celebrating Krishna Janmashtami in the waxing phase of the moon, not in the waning. In the waning phase of the moon, not in the waxing phase of the moon. All Ram Navami and most other things are done in the Shukla Paksha. If you look at all the deities, Shukla Paksha. Here we are doing it because we want Krishna to maybe control the negative forces of, Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, Mars. And because it is done in the waning phase of the moon, which is Krishna.
I think we have gone to a little bit more depth, leaving divisional charts, and then we slightly.
No, why did I digress? Is because I wanted to show you the importance of Rahu and Ketu in the D12 chart, and also the Sun and the Moon.
So when you say relationship, for example, if you see D7 relationship between fifth house Lord and Jupiter, let's say if a person is born with a Leo Lagna, let's say, then he will have Jupiter. Leo Lagna is not a good example. Let's say a person is born with a Virgo Lagna. Then in the fifth house, the fifth Lord will be fifth house is Capricorn, and the fifth Lord will be Saturn. So in the D7, you should see Jupiter and Saturn relation. That's what
and also we shouldn't forget Capricorn also has to be marked because it is your D1's fifth house.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That also becomes a very important when you are looking at the general analysis. But definitely I would look at what is the relationship between Jupiter and Saturn. Now, somebody who is that way, we can also say if somebody's chart is supporting, then the transits can also be seen. Now, if you see, Jupiter and Saturn, if they're already married and they are expecting to have children, this combination of Saturn and Jupiter, which is going to be formed in Capricorn, which becomes very important for them. Now, if not for children, go to another chart also, you can see, is it conducive for relationship? Similarly, you would go and see what is the transit happening in the D9 chart with respect to Venus and any of your Mahadasha Lord, So first of all, you have to see what is the natal promise. Secondly, we have to see whether the dashas are supporting those, these grahas and the transits are supporting or not. So without the dashas, there is no point in looking at the divisional charts because the divisional charts will give the results only in the Mahadasha, Antardasha, Pratyantardasha, and Sukshma, Pranadasha, whatever.
Correct. Okay.
Largely, Mahadasha, Antardasha would be the key.
Correct.
So all I'm trying to say is definitely look at the relationship and see if the relationship is conducive or not. For example, if you say in your example, Saturn and Jupiter are neutral planets to each other. They are neither friendly, they're not enemies. So if their relationship is being formed, they are more conducive to give children. But whereas if it was like Saturn and Sun, if the fifth Lord in a Dashmamsh you're talking about, so if the Sun becomes the 10th house Lord, and you're seeing the relationship with the, the 10th house lord at Sun and Saturn, obviously they would have some conflict. So these are the people who can say they could have tendencies to have multiple jobs or trouble with their bosses or association. So that gives you some indication as a life pattern emerges. But definitely we have to look at the dashas to make a more informed decision about what is going to pan out in the near term or a long term for them.
And of course, this is in a very broad sense. We
Broad
have
sense.
to, yeah.
Yeah, this is a very broad sense. But why these grahas will give you greater confidence is because you will know in those charts, those grahas will definitely control a lot of the influence over the chart through that graha. So if these grahas are forming strong yogas, or if they are well placed in their own signs, then or in their exaltation positions in the chart, they will definitely have a greater potency to give you a good results for the chart in general. I'm saying the Varga charts.
Yeah.
So those principles of Parashara you shouldn't forget when you're analyzing a chart.
Okay.
Okay.
Great, Dr. Pai.
So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you a lot for shedding some light on the divisional charts, and thank you very much once again. And I look forward for such. I think short videos are really, I think, make sense.
Yes.
30 minutes. I think we should target for that. But whenever we make a
I think we
video,
surely will have more such videos coming along now that, once we sit and we discuss, we get these ideas, and I'm sure people will enjoy these nuggets of information that we are sharing. Of course, what I want to say is do not restrict yourself to what I've said, because there are many more things that you can look from these Varga charts. It's not only, like, for example, many people think D9 means only for marriage. That's a very great mistake, because I and many of the astrologers would always use Navamsh very, very powerfully for making analysis, because it is generally the fruit of the tree. If your D1 chart is the tree, what is the fruit of the tree the D9 can give you. It's just not only for marriage, but marriage is also seen from the D9 chart, or the marital bliss is also seen, because Venus also controls or has supporting influence over the D9 chart. Okay.
And out of all the divisional charts, they will say D9 is the most important somehow.
Yes. Yes.
And it's ruled by Venus, of course. And even in Vimshuttari, Venus has got the most, like 20 years out of 120, 1/6 of the period is of Venus.
Yes.
So Venus somehow becomes prominent during our time right now, maybe in this Kali Yuga or whatever it is. So I guess there is something associated with Venus. Of course, we know it's for marriage, it's for love, it's for all those things, which is important. But somehow I feel that Venus becomes a dominant role in today's time.
Because Venus is also the graha for creating value. If you do not have value for something, see, price is what you pay for a product, but value is what you get. Similarly, Venus gives you that value to that product, or to essentially. So it is just not the money which will be important, it's the value that you attach to something, which is a thing. That's why Venus gives you that value and appreciation for that value. If you're buying something which is ornate, colorful, then that is Venus. That's
on the other day, when we were talking about, me and Kapil were talking, it was Kapil's idea. I would just like to say that, saying that whenever we take mobile phone, what we do, basically we use our thumb, correct?
Yeah.
We use our thumb to scroll down and all. And what is thumb? Thumb is just above the Venus mount.
Yeah.
So some may say it's Mars and all, but above the Venus mount is a thumb. So that's why every day now phone and all, it's all like Venus energy.
Yes.
Initial days, what you used to do when you used to call, you used to dial the number.
Yeah.
Which finger you used to use? Jupiter.
Yeah.
Jupiter was more direct. And now it's all Venus.
True.
And all phone, whatever app and all, you will always use this thumb to do.
Absolutely.
Some Venusian energy is coming out. Rather than that was much more direct, phone and all, using your thumb, using your index finger.
Correct.
Which is Jupiterian finger in the olden days.
Yes.
So, yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Pai.
Thanks, Dr. Rohit. Yeah. Namaste.
Thank you.